Understanding what to look for in watercolor paper is kind of a big deal, and painting becomes a lot more fun when you work with paper that's receptive to you and your personal painting style. In this video, I'm going to show you 3 different loose watercolor projects for you to enjoy, as well as a look at the selection of sketchbooks and papers made by Indigo Art Papers. Art is about ideas, and for me that means I want to be able to express as many ideas as possible so that I can, pick from that, pick out the good ones. Because I can't choose when an idea happens, it's important to me to be able to be ready for those ideas when they come. And often I see something that triggers an idea, I want to write it down, do a quick sketch, bring it back to the studio so that I can paint. That's why I'm really loving being able to use Indigo Art Papers, a variety of portable cotton papers. They come in book form. I have here 3 different types of Indigo Art Papers books, and I wanted to just give you a quick look at them and talk about what the differences between them are. So if you're at the art supply store and you're seeing the Indigo Art Paper books with the 3 different colored labels, you'll have an idea of what's in each book and which one to choose. We have here the Handmade Sketch hardcover book, the Mixed Media hardcover book. Both of these have the bound edge, and then the spiral bound watercolor Wiro pads. And Wiro pads I've been using for quite a while, and you'll have seen them in some of my previous videos. I like the spiral bound so that it sits nice and flat when I'm painting. It's my traditional watercolor paper, the same paper Indigo sells in loose sheets, and the weight is 140 pound or 300 GSM, so it's nice and thick, just like the paper that I use from Indigo that I'm used to using. When I'm on the go, I might not have a paintbrush with me, maybe just pen and pencil to jot down ideas, draw a quick sketch, and then I might be more likely to want to go for one of these hardbound books. The Mixed Media hardcover book has a 200 GSM paper. That's a 94 pound paper, so it's got some thickness, some substance to it for working with wet media, but works really well for dry as well. And the Handmade Sketch hardcover books, and I have 2 different sizes here to show you, the A5 and A6 sizes. And A6 is about 4 by 6 inches, and A5 is just under 6 by 8 inches. And these 2 books have 100 GSM paper, 70 pound. All of these books are 100% cotton rag paper. That means they have the same acid-free qualities, the same kind of texture and color, but the thickness is different. One thing that I think that's really beautiful about these books is the decal edge. Each page has that beautiful handmade look, and it just feels like artist paper. Let's take a closer look now at each of these different books. Because I'm a watercolor artist, I'm always going to do a little bit of painting in my sketchbooks on mixed media paper. I'm always going to give it a try. And with Indigo, we have 100% cotton paper, so that when I have a sketch in one of these sketchbooks, I can add paint and get a feel for what my painting is going to look like. This little sketch was prepared for a larger painting, working out some of those colors, thinking about composition, and just testing out ideas. I love that this sketchbook's portable, fits right into my little zippered pouch, and off I go. That's small enough to fit in my purse, take to the coffee shop. Once I get home, or maybe when I have my watercolor kit with me, I can use the Wiro pad with its watercolor paper to start going a little deeper into developing my idea and building on what I started in my sketchbook. A sketchbook is a great way to do visual note-taking, places you've been, things you see, ideas you have, and then work them out in a paper that's, yes, more receptive to watercolor. The Indigo Wiro pads have the same paper that I'm going to use when I explore this painting in full size in my studio. And so here I'm starting to get a feel for the flow. as well as the composition, as well as the colors. I can really use this sketchbook, this paper, to just go that one step further, take that idea from that first little sketchbook and develop it just a little bit more. I find as well that I'm much more willing to try out ideas on a small piece of paper in a sketchbook, so that when I go to my full sheet of paper, these resources will help me paint more confidently on that big sheet. And you can see here how I've taken those ideas and the connection from those original sketches and how they're playing out on a full sheet of watercolor paper. In my world, sketchbooks are for trying out ideas and experimenting, and the more I experiment, the stronger my finished paintings become. So this is a very important part of my painting process. This is a hardcover sketchbook, and because it's made for mixed media rather than watercolor, it's actually a little bit thinner than the watercolor paper. It's 200 GSM instead of 300 GSM, so it does feel a little thinner. The finish is a little bit smoother as well. So it's made to work with different media, and generally when we're looking at different media, we're thinking pencil, maybe acrylic paint, maybe gouache, although that is also a water media. Maybe we're stamping or using inks or colored pencil. All of these, of course, use less water, and so you can get away with a thinner paper. Thinner paper gives you more pages in the book and the ability to layer and add depth to your image. And I've been thinking about how sometimes I paint beautiful watercolors and parts of the painting work really well and other parts do not. And I started wondering if a thinner paper would give me a little more freedom to repurpose my paintings in different ways. If I can create something magical one time in a sketchbook, I can trust that that thing that worked in that sketchbook, I'm going to be able to continue to create beautiful magic in other forms, in my larger paintings, and my sketchbook serves as that reminder that without ideas, I'm just painting the same thing over and over again. So I'm always looking for a new way to see and a new way to express myself. The mixed media paper has a smoother feel to me. The watercolor just sits on it just a little differently than it does on the Indigo watercolor paper. And so it's going to flow differently, and that's going to bring me different ideas. If I can't do crazy experimental things in my sketchbook, where can I do them? The mixed media paper is a handmade paper. It's quite soft, so we're going to see some irregularities in it and some areas where the texture might affect how the paint flows. Toward the edge there's a little line, and right in here there's a little blob of paper that I didn't see when I first started painting, so it kind of popped out as I was building up color. I'm going to let it be a part of the painting here. This is lifting really nicely. Let's give this mixed media paper a chance to dry, and then we'll go put some more, maybe some ink onto this little wet and wet study. Just adding a little bit of ink, acrylic ink, to this watercolor sketch for these details. You know, when you have a watercolor background, it's a lot of fun to use other media, or just line and detail to complete and tell a story. There's just a hint of people there. And even though this is just a sketchbook, not really made for working with a lot of moisture, it's holding up really well. I do have just a piece of cardstock coated paper underneath, just in case I have anything bleeding through, but I haven't really experienced that as being an issue on this painting, on this paper at all. It is 100% cotton still. It does hold up to these repeated layers, and it's not even looking kind of pilled or scrubbed as my brush moves back and forth over the painting. you know, the paper has a nice strong weave, and that keeps it nice and smooth so that it can take these repeated layers. I love how watercolor paper so often feels like fabric, especially when it's wet. And this is a thinner sketch paper. It's 100 GSM, 70 pound. It's not thick, but I like that for this. You can see it buckles a little bit after it's been wet. That's all right. If I really wanted it to be smooth again, I could iron it. It's 100% cotton, so I can put my iron on the cotton setting and iron it carefully. I chose the colors that I did because I have been making these little paintings on panel, and I thought it would be fun to try to add a third dimension to them with thinner paper that I could cut to size. So I've got some flowers here, and I wondered what it would look like if I attached some leaves using my 100% cotton paper. Yeah, so there's a lot of white on that one. Let's try another one. Looking at the paper this time, seeing where that takes us. And I kind of like this shape here, so let's use it. See what that looks like. There we go. And some of these leaves could be tucked in behind the flower, so we have a flower petal and then a leaf coming up. Let's make that a flower petal over on this side. I'm going to start using some acrylic medium to glue these pieces down. This is just a heavy gel, acrylic medium, and I'm just using one of my old brushes. So suddenly my painting starts to take on this 3D element, and I think that's kind of cool. So now I've just put a fold in it. That's kind of fun. Watercolor paper, you know, often I'll mess up a painting and not know what to do with the little parts of the painting that work well. If my paper is really thick, it's hard to take that and then turn it into something that I can use. You know, often you can maybe crop the painting and frame it nice and small so that the beautiful part is the one part that's left. But actually for this, you're taking tiny pieces and they're painted on that thinner paper so that we can build up those 3D elements, and I just think that's kind of fun. Just something worth trying. And because the paper is 100% cotton, it does feel like I'm working with cloth just a little bit. I fully believe that every artist deserves a quality, creative process, one that nurtures your inner artist and allows you to shine. As you look for supplies, pay attention to that feeling of connection with the product. When you find the right paper, the right paint, the right brushes, you'll just have that sense of coming home and working with something that really welcomes you in. And we look for that and we encourage it because our art is so valuable for our creative growth, for our positive mindset, and we get to see beautiful art come out of the process. Thanks for watching. I'm Angela Fehr.